The purpose of this interview is to discover work-life balance of student affairs professionals pursuing doctoral degrees. At this stage in the research, work-life balance will be generally defined as work and life balance is the act of distributing personal resources across work and life domains to achieve successful experiences in the multiple roles an individual has. Research questions. As full-time professionals enrolled in doctoral classes, work-life balance is hard to achieve. Research has shown different kinds of organized groups compete with each other for the limited energies and time commitments of individuals. Can a full-time practitioner achieve work-life balance? Hello. My name is Megan Wiffley, and I'm a doctoral student in the Educational Leadership and Policy Analysis program at East Tennessee State University. I'm here to learn whether full-time professionals and practitioners can achieve some approximation of work-life balance. It is my hope that your commitment to this interview will only take 30 minutes of your time. Depending on the complexity of your answers, our time together may extend to 45 minutes. This interview will be audio and video recorded for the purposes of data collection. No personal information will be shared about you, nor will your real name be used in any findings. This interview intends you no physical or emotional harm. However, if at any time you wish to stop the interview process, please feel free to do so. By continuing this interview, you consent to all that I have shared with you so far. Do you agree?
I agree.
During this interview, you will be asked about the work-life balance you feel you have with your current position and your attempt at your doctoral degree. I may also ask about any work-life balance you felt you had in previous positions and hopes for work-life balance in the future. Introductory questions. Do you work outside of your home?
I do, yes.
If your answer is yes, do you work for someone else, such as you are not your own supervisor?
I am not my own supervisor.
Are you a doctoral student?
Yeah.
Okay, then we will proceed. So, tell me a little bit about yourself, including your name, and then also describe your student affairs journey.
Okay. My name is Jenny Bryan, and I am a first-year doctoral student. I currently work at MTSU in the Department of Student Unions. So most of my professional career has been in student affairs. I was in student affairs when I was an undergraduate and pursued my master's degree directly after undergrad experience. I've got experiences in housing, a bit in student activities, a bit in admissions, and then my first professional job, I guess, was at Vanderbilt that I took directly after grad school. Worked there for a few years. And then I left the field for a brief amount of time to go and work as a school counselor in the high schools. And then I was off for about 7 years as a stay-at-home mom before coming to this position. So while student affairs I've considered sort of my career choice, there have been other offshoots of things that I've done in the interim in search really of work-life balance at those points in my life.
Could you describe your educational journey? You talked a little bit about your professional journey, but what was your background?
So my undergraduate degree was in psychology. I earned a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Roanoke College, a small private school in Virginia. I had a concentration in healthcare delivery because at that time I was an emergency medical technician and had an interest in the medical field. And I had a mentor that worked with me at Roanoke College. He was a dean of students actually, and he really encouraged me to stay in student affairs and to choose it as a career because he felt that I had something to offer that industry, I guess. And so he helped me find a program that was all inclusive. I had a full ride and an assistantship at University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And so my degree there was earned in 2000, and it is educational administration with a specialization in student affairs. And so it's been since 2000 that I have had any formal classes. About a year and a half ago, I decided that I wanted to go back and pursue an advanced degree, and so I briefly was in the EDS, Educational Specialist Program here at MTSU, but they didn't have many class offerings online, which as a single mother of 3, I felt I needed to have. So I was only in that program for a semester before transferring last summer to the ETSU doctoral program.
And so where are you at in that doctoral program?
So I am a little bit farther than a year in, I guess, because I've taken a couple of extra classes at MTSU. I'm taking an extra class this summer, and so a little over a year in.
Describe your home life. You just said you were a single mother, so tell us more.
Yes, I have 3 children that range in age from 10 to 16, and I've been a single mom now for 3 or 4 years. So they were a huge consideration when deciding to go back to my to get my degree, because I don't have extra supports inside the home other than those kiddos.
Do you think you currently have work-life balance?
No, I don't. It's a never-ending struggle to try to find that, both because of my current job that requires a lot of nights and weekends, and then in addition to that, my doctoral program takes what is left of my time in the evenings and on weekends typically.
Have you had to previously balance work and school at your either different jobs or you said back in grad school?
Yeah, I had an assistantship, and so we each worked at the university while going to school. We were full-time students and worked part-time hours. However, my second year was a 2.5-year program because we went through the summer. My second year, I had what was supposed to have been an assistantship in the housing office, like the central office, and they had a residence director that left right before the beginning of that fall term, and so they asked if I would be interested in serving as an RD instead of being doing an assistantship in the office. And so that was more than full-time hours during my second year as a master's student.
Do you have work-life balance at your current institution? You said no. Can you explain a little bit more about that? And then if so, have you had previous work-life balances at other institutions?
Well, so I guess starting now, I am the assistant director for student unions. We do a lot of events, and so those events typically happen on nights and weekends, often do. We also have facilities, 3 different facilities that are open until midnight in some cases. And so just facility issues, puts me on call quite a bit to respond to the student workers, even if I'm not physically here. So it's very difficult when I'm the one that's planned an event, even if I have a student serving as an event manager for me. If they have run into any trouble, then they'll typically have to reach out to me. There are certain clients that I feel I should be at their event, external clients in particular. So for that reason, I end up working 60, 70 hours a week, sometimes more during our busy times. April was exceptionally busy. As far as prior institutions, when I was at Vanderbilt, I was a live-in professional, and I was assistant director of housing, and so I lived in, and I had 6 different residence halls with around 750 students, and I was the primary on-call person for that residential area. I also took call for the campus on weekends. We rotated duties with that. So again, it became really difficult to balance any sort of home life. While I lived in at Vanderbilt, I had my first daughter, and so that was the point at which I realized that my job was deeply affecting my ability to spend time with my family, and so that's when I left that position and went to work in the secondary schools in order to not have to drag my baby out of bed at 3 a.m.
So you're taking classes. Do online classes help or hinder your work-life balance, and why?
I think both. I think it helps in terms of me just feeling secure that I am there. The one semester I was in that EDS program, the class that I took was a physical on ground class, and for 14 weeks, every week for 3 hours, I was at this class. And I just knew that it wasn't sustainable. I've got 3 kids; they're all very active. While my oldest was old enough to watch the younger two, they're siblings and they disagree, and so I just felt like she was struggling under the weight of trying to manage her younger siblings that aren't great about listening to her in my absence. And I was, taking texts and things like that during class, which my supervisor or my professor was super patient with, but I just felt like I couldn't give my full attention to it. And so that's why it reinforced that the online asynchronous learning was the best for me in this time period. Although that's not my personal preference, that's not how I would choose to learn if given the option, if things were different. Um, so, but I do think that it hinders the work life balance as well because um, it's just all the time. This weekend, I had an exceptional amount of work for the 2 classes that I'm taking currently, um, and I spent the whole weekend in and out of my bedroom while my kids sort of fended for themselves. So um, that that asynchronous learning sometimes is more time intensive, I think, because it's more self directed and you have to um, do a lot of reading, and sometimes you don't get it, and so you have to try to you spend more time trying to understand it than I think would be the case if your professor was teaching in a traditional sort of setting. So anyway, there's pros and cons.
What do you personally need for a successful work-life balance?
Ugh. I think that I need support in reaching it. I am a perfectionist. I will push myself and push myself and push myself, and I almost need someone to be like, "That's enough. Go home." Unfortunately, I have not had the last couple of positions. I have not had supervisors that take that sort of tact with me, and so they'll kind of let me run myself into the ground. Now I'm an adult and I'm responsible for myself, um, and I need to be better about setting boundaries. But I think that the situation is ripe um, for what has resulted, which is no work life balance, because my current supervisor is very protective of his time, and yet there are things that need to be done on nights and on weekends, as I mentioned, with events and supporting the facilities that he's happy to delegate to me. So yeah.
What strategies have you used at all to be successful with work-life balance?
Um, Good question. I'm not sure I have been terribly successful thus far.
I mean, do you set time management procedures for yourself? Do you use a planner? Do you set things with your phone? Do you, this time I for sure do something, but I don't do anything this time?
I try to be really present with my kids when I've scheduled something with them. Like when when they are playing their games, I might be sitting with my work on my lap or texting my students while waiting for them to play. But when they're on the court, I put the phone down and close the book. And so in that way, I try to, like I said, communicate to my kids that I'm there for them. Um, yes, I use a planner, but I think I've said this before in our discussion boards. I have sort of given up on the thought that I will ever achieve a true work-life balance because I'm a single mom. I have to leave in the afternoons to go pick up my kids from school, for example. And fortunately, my supervisor is okay with me doing that because I work a lot of hours. But those are little things that I sometimes have a little bit of flexibility to do. I'm just trying to reach a healthy blend where I can respond to emails or texts, um, but not feel like I'm never able to get away from work. And the same is true for school stuff. I need to set better parameters, I think, for myself in terms of I'm only going to give this 5 hours and then I'm done and then I'm closing the book. Because I'm a perfectionist, I tend to work and work and work much longer on something than really probably should be the case.
How has technology or what we consider continuous connectivity affected your work-life balance?
It just makes it ever present. So I am, this was true at Vanderbilt as well. I had a pager and 2 cell phones for people to get a hold of me, and I was just entirely too connected. While in this position, the university does not pay for my cell phone, yet it is an expectation that I respond to it should the students need something. And so it's really difficult to just feel, I'm definitely not at 4:30 turning off the computer and walking away, not to think of work again until the next morning. That rarely, if ever, happens. And technology is a big piece of that.
As women and higher education professionals, obviously there's a difference between what we face and what men face. Do you think that your work-life balance is different than perhaps a male's life-work balance would be?
It's a difficult, loaded question. I think it depends on what their role is in their home. Again, I'm a single parent, but before I was a single parent, there was just the way that the roles were broken up in my marriage. I went to work all day. I came home and did the grocery shopping and the food preparation and the cleanup and the childcare. And that was the distribution of labor in my home, which I know is often true for other women. So for that reason, and I enjoy doing those things. And so part of it was me too. Part of it was I wanted to make dinner. I enjoy cooking. I wanted to put my kids to bed and bath, because that was the time that I got to spend with them that day. Some quality time. I wanted to read with them, and but my ex-spouse was happy to let me do that so that he didn't have to. So I recognize that not all men are like that. I think some of them probably have a more equal distribution of labor in their homes, but that was my experience.
Do you have any tips for future full-time professionals who are also doctoral students regarding work-life balance?
Get some. No, really. I mean, like I get to the point where my brain is fried. It is fried, and there's nothing productive coming out of it. And I think I was better at setting boundaries for work, for school, that I could come at whatever the task is at hand with a fresher frame of mind. And so, again, I have some personality quirks that make it difficult for me to just walk away from something. But I think if I were to be better about doing that, I might be more time efficient.
Is there anything else that we didn't talk about today that you'd like to talk about?
No, I think that we've covered it all.
Okay. So thank you for your time. I appreciate your willingness to speak with me as well as the extent of your answers to the best of your ability. Please let me know if there are any other ideas you may have regarding this information or anything you think you'd like to add. Thanks again.